Across continents and conflicts, the world today feels like a stage burning at both ends, from the scorched skies of southern Europe to the missile streaks, darkness over Ukraine, from hills and heated music festivals, stages in Britain, to tense diplomatic corridors between Washington and Tehran. The planet is bracing, watching, waiting. But then, for what? In Israel, the echoes of war are no longer confined to Gaza's shattered streets or Iran's scorched nuclear facilities. They are being debated in parliament halls, shouted on stages, and whispered in back-channel peace talks. In Ukraine, air raid sirens drown out the summer breeze as the F-16s fall and village borders blur. Meanwhile, New York prepares for a major with a radical economic vision. And Europe itself finds gasping under a furnace sky that no longer waits for August. And while leaders clash over taxes and treaties and ideologies rise louder than national anthems, the people, families, pilots, shoekeepers, students are left to navigate a world where the boundaries between diplomacy, war, culture, and climate have never been so thin. When every corner of the globe burns, by bomb or by heat wave, what do we put out first? The fires we see or the ones we refuse to name? Well, welcome to the Flash News. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. This thing is still playing. In the wake of a high-stakes 12-day military escalation, Israel had signaled a ceasefire. We saw also a strategic shift, not a withdrawal, from the regional confrontation with Iran and militant proxies. With a ceasefire between Jerusalem and Tehran tentatively holding, attention is now shifting to the fallout, political, diplomatic, and even cultural. But the question looming over this conflict goes far beyond the battlefield. Has the region entered a new era of deterrence, or is it merely a pause before the next provocation? Well, Israel's operations inside Iranian territory, most notably the targeted strikes on nuclear facilities and the elimination of over a dozen scientists, have drawn both condemnation and quiet admiration, with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu describing the campaign as one that reset the regional balance and opened new opportunities, hinting at ongoing negotiations to secure the release of hostages still held in Gaza. Well, we see that despite denials from Tehran, reports confirm that Israel's strikes disrupted key elements of Iran's nuclear structure. Key elements of Iran's nuclear progress, delaying potential enrichment capabilities by several months at minimum. Well, then we're seeing different narratives in the news and on the headlines. If it really impacted the Iran's nuclear infrastructure, or if it really did not. But then CIA's press release, as you see, and what President Donald Trump had to say about it is what we'll take a listen to.
We shot a total of 30. Every single one of them hit within 9 inches from where it was supposed to be. It took out a lot because we didn't do just Fordo. We did 2 others in addition, which hadn't been completely destroyed. So we hit them with a submarine from hundreds of miles away. Amazing, just amazing equipment. We shot a total of 30. every single one of them hit within 9 inches from where it was supposed to be. It took out a lot because we didn't do just Fordo. We did 2 others in addition, which hadn't been completely destroyed. So we hit them with a submarine from hundreds of miles away. Amazing, just amazing equipment.
While CIA's Director John Ratcliffe emphasized the severe damage inflicted while President Trump dismissed claims from the United Nations nuclear watchdog that Iran could resume enrichment within months, calling it an exaggeration meant to preserve their leverage. Now, when facts clash with narratives, who decides the truth? The evidence on the ground or the voices in global headlines? Well, in a bid to restore mission clarity, here is what John Ratcliffe, away from the press release, had to say, emphasizing the CIA's role in all of this.
CIA, as you know, is the finest foreign intelligence agency in the world. That's our history. But we've had leaders fall away from that core mission, us not be as effective as we need to be in what we do in terms of collecting foreign intelligence and stealing secrets and providing President Trump a decisive strategic advantage against our foreign adversaries, that we're not about politics, that we're about collecting intelligence that matters, that makes a difference, that gives him an advantage as he makes decisions, whether it's against adversaries like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, or dealing with terrorists. Anytime he has engagements with the rest of the world, we want to make sure that he is armed with the best intelligence to make the best decisions to keep Americans safe.
Efforts reportedly helped prevent an Iranian retaliation targeting the largest U.S. base in the Gulf. The success of this silent diplomacy backed by American intelligence speaks volume about the layered nature of modern conflict. Sometimes the battles that don't happen are just as telling as the ones that do. Now, even as tensions ease between Israel and Iran, Gaza remains a flashpoint. The IDF continues its targeted strikes against Hamas infrastructure amid pressure from international bodies and human rights organizations. In response, the United States has committed $30 million to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, seeking to we see the United States seeking to provide aid to civilians who were caught in the crossfire while maintaining its commitment to Israel's security. Now, critics argue that the United States and Israeli operations contribute to civilians' casualties. Defenders point out that Hamas has continued using populated areas to launch attacks, effectively turning schools and hospitals into shields. How can a nation be faulted for defending its people while its enemies hide behind theirs is the question. But then still on the Israel war with Iran, we see on the international front, the battle is not over. Israel is no longer confined to airspace and diplomacy. Over the weekend, a new front emerged, this time on a music stage in the United Kingdom. British punk rap duo Bob Vylan sparked national outrage at Glastonbury Festival. Let's take a listen at what this outrage actually sounds like.
Hi, but have you heard this one though? Death, death to the IDF, 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 death, death to the IDF.
So as you can see, he went from saying free the Palestinians to death to the IDF, a direct reference to the Israel Defense Forces, wishing death on them. The United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the remarks appalling hate speech, joining a chorus of condemnation from Jewish groups, law enforcement and media regulators. British police have opened an inquiry, while festival organizers and the BBC, who streamed the performance live, face scrutiny for allowing such rhetoric to air unchecked on their TV. While we see the BBC press release admitting it should have pulled the stream, and Starmer warned that platforms cannot be used to incite violence or glorify hatred. We see this comes amid a broader debate about rising anti-Semitism in Europe, with artists like Ireland's Kneecap also under investigation for inflammatory comments directed at Israel. Now, when free speech becomes a weapon, who bears the wound? The government, civilians, or truth itself? Despite the backlash in some Western cultural spheres, we see Israeli leadership seeing a momentum, with Netanyahu stating that many opportunities have opened up as a result of the military success, hinting at both diplomatic overtures and potential prisoner exchange, with American backing steady and intelligence collaborations with regional allies like Qatar and Jordan intensifying. The regional chessboard is clearly being redrawn. The question now is not whether Israel can defend itself. That has been decisively answered. The question is what comes next? Diplomatic recalibrations, prolonged tensions, or a new model of conflict where technology, alliances, and information warfare redefine old rules. Well, from precision strikes to international stages, from host state negotiations to music festival controversies, Israel's war is no longer just about missiles and borders. It is about perception, strategy, and survival. In this expanding theater of conflict, the lines are drawn, not just between armies, but between ideologies. And as the ceasefire holds for now, one can only wonder, is the world finally listening to the warnings or simply waiting for the noise to rise again? Well, we see in Russia that despite months of military buildup and strategic signaling, Russia's anticipated summer offensive has delivered only modest territorial gains, falling short of expectations. And however, Ukraine continues to pay a steep price, especially in the skies. Between June 28 and June 30th, 2025, Russia launched its largest aerial assault since the full-scale war began in 2022, with over 530 weapons, including nearly 480 drones and dozens of missiles fired across Ukrainian airspace. The main targets included energy infrastructure, military airfields, and civilian zones. Ukrainian air defense forces intercepted the majority of the attack, with 436 drones and 38 missiles shot down. Still, 2 civilians were killed and at least a dozen more were injured, particularly in the southern city of Odessa. One of the most devastating losses came when Lieutenant Colonel Maxim, a veteran Ukrainian fighter pilot, was killed after his F-16 fighter jet was down during the assault. He was reported to have taken down several aerial threats before crashing in an open field, likely steering his aircraft away from populated areas. Well, his death has been described as a heroic sacrifice, and he has since been posthumously named a hero of Ukraine. While Ukraine grieves, Russian troops have made some progress on the ground. They captured the village of Dashnoye in Dnipropetrovsk, that's marking the first confirmed Russian gain in the region. And in the northeastern Sumy region, Russian forces have expanded their control over a significant stretch of borderland, with over 950 square kilometers reportedly under occupation since early June. Meanwhile, in Donetsk, Ukrainian forces are still holding out against fresh Russian attacks near Kostiantynskva, which is a city previously thought to be secure. But then Ukrainian generals have warned that Russia is reinforcing its troops and artillery positions, hinting at a longer, drawn-out campaign rather than a quick offensive. Now, in response to the increased ground pressure and the use of landmines by Russian forces, Ukraine has announced its intent to withdraw from the 1997 Ottawa Convention. Now, this banned anti-personnel landmines. Ukrainian officials argue that they must watch the methods being used against them in order to hold key defensive lines. Despite the escalation, there is no progress in peace talks, while Russia's President Vladimir Putin has signaled an interest in resuming negotiations in Istanbul. Ukrainian officials maintain that no talks are possible without a ceasefire and the withdrawal of Russian troops from occupied territory. But then on the diplomatic front, NATO and EU members continue to show support for Ukraine. Germany has expanded its military aid, and the EU recently renewed sanctions against Russia for 6 another 6 months, actually. The United States under President Trump has also reaffirmed its security commitments, though no new military packages have been confirmed this week. As June ends, both sides remain locked in a brutal stalemate. Russia struggling to gain momentum and Ukraine absorbing the cost of defense and lives and equipment. Over to the United States politics, we see that after weeks of mounting diplomatic tensions, Canada has officially announced it will rescind its planned digital services tax, a levy that would have disproportionately impacted large American tech companies. The reversal follows the Trump administration's firm decision to cancel trade negotiations last Friday, citing the tax as a direct and blatant attack on our country, in Trump's words. The digital tax, originally introduced as a way to tap into revenues from tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Meta, was seen in Washington as a thinly veiled protectionist move targeting U.S. innovations. President Trump, known for his America First trade stance, wasted no time in halting progress on the bilateral trade talks, signaling that the United States economic sovereignty remains non-negotiable under his administration. While Ottawa framed the policy reversal as an effort to create space for better trade conversations, many observers agree it was Trump's decisive leverage that forced the rethink of the digital levy tax. Now, when does standing firm on principle stop being controversial and start being respected? We can only see as the news headlines continue to unfold. In New York City, Zohran Mamdani's victory in the Democratic primary has ignited debate over a cornerstone of the campaign. His campaign, the creation of 5 municipally owned grocery stores, one in each borough. Framed as a response to the city's deepening food insecurity crisis, the proposal aims to offer affordable staples in underserved neighborhoods where more than 30% of residents struggle to access fresh food. Now, while Mamdani's camp describes the plan as a realistic safety net for low-income families, critics have labeled it everything from a Soviet-style disaster to an economically delusional throwback to failed socialist experiments. But some policy analysts argue that publicly supported food initiatives already exist in various United States cities, suggesting the idea may not be as radical as headlines imply. Still, the clash underscores the deeper ideological fault lines reshaping American urban politics: public good versus private enterprise, access versus autonomy. Now, should the state feed the people or empower the people to feed themselves? We'll leave that for you to think about. But then on the Southern Europe, scorching under record heat is a report that has spread across the globe, with the relentless heat wave scorching Southern Europe, pushing temperatures to nearly 45 degrees Celsius. That is 113 Fahrenheit across France, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. Authorities in all 4 countries have issued public health warnings, while emergency services brace for more wildfires as dry winds and extreme heat persist. France's Ecology Transition Minister Agnès Pannier had something also with regards to the heat waves, who called the conditions unprecedented, with 84 out of 96 mainland departures placed on the nation's second highest orange alert level. Hospitals in the south have activated heat emergency protocols, while schools in part of Spain have been shut down or moved to early hours to protect children from exposure to this heat wave. Firefighters in France and Turkey were placed on standby Sunday as blazes broke out in rural and semi-urban areas. Driven by the heat, brittle vegetation, and gusty wind in parts of southern Italy and Spain, roads melted, crops wilted, and tourism dipped as governments urged citizens to stay indoors, hydrate, and limit energy use. Experts continue to point to climate change as a driving force behind the intensity and frequency of such extreme heat events. While Southern Europe has long endured hot summers, the duration and intensity of this year's first wave is raising concerns. If these are just the first flames of summer, what will August bring is what the concerns lingers on. But then in today's global report, the thread that connects every headline is tension. The the tension between what is and what's at stake, whether it's in the battlefields, boardrooms, or ballot boxes. The decisions of a few continue to shape the fate of millions. Well, that brings us to the end of today's Flash News, and thank you for joining in. For deeper insight and fearless storytelling, do not miss out on Undaunted tonight at 8 p.m. Amba time. Do have a blessed day.